Hey everyone, it's Ashley with Southern Sewing Company. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're making this cute Halloween applique shirt with witch's legs. That's perfect for your little girl for Halloween. I know I'm a little bit late posting this, but there's still time. Let's get started. For this project, you are going to need the template for the witch's legs, her shoes. A quick note on the download, you're going to want to print this 100% to scale, and I've also included different lengths of stockings, so just measure the part that you want or the length that you want to go up to. If you're using a bigger shirt, I would consider resizing this up or resizing it down to make a smaller shirt. And I'll have a free download in the description box below of where you can find this. Next, you're going to need some Heat and Bond Light, orange ribbon, some large Ric Rac, and then some thread that matches your ribbon and a needle. You're also going to need some tulle. For this project, I'm using black, orange, and purple to kind of match this scrap fabric that I've got going on here. These are going to be the witch's socks and her shoes. And then we're going to use the tulle for her skirt with the Ric Rac. So it's going to be super cute. And then we're going to make, instead of buckles, we're going to use the ribbon to make little bows for the buckles. When you're doing applique, each different part has to be cut into its own shape because you're going to fuse it to different fabrics. So instead of staying right here and tracing the leg, I'm going to move up a little bit because the leg actually needs to be its own piece. So I'm probably going to move over here to try to save a little bit of materials here. As you can see, this is the boot and this is the leg. And instead of stopping right here, I'm going to go down a little bit so that my boot fabric will overlap the leg fabric. So that's that. We are done with those two. If you don't, this is a light box from Crayola. If you don't have one of these, just use an open window. Don't feel like you have to buy something like this. I'm going to rough cut these out. Now we're going to take these to the ironing board. Remember, we're going to iron on the back of our fabric. So this is the front, this is the back. And then I'm going to do this striped fabric with our legs. Remember, this fabric is directional, so you kind of want to figure out if you want the stripes running long ways or short ways, and I want them to go this way. So this will be the top and this will be the bottom, and I kind of want them to be the same, so I'm going to use this green line as a reference, and the top of my leg is going to be about halfway in between this black stripe right here. I like to use a ruler and a rotary blade for this just because it's straight lines. It makes it a lot easier and I can't cut that straight. But scissors also work just fine. Here's our feet, here's our legs. Next, we are going to iron this onto our shirt. We're back at the ironing board. The first thing that we're going to want to do is find the center point of our shirt. This is a Monag shirt. It's a size 4, so this just for reference, and this is kind of cut, slim cut for a girl. So I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to iron just to make a crease down the middle that I can use as a reference point. Next, we're going to play with the layout a little bit and try to figure out where we want our stuff to go. I'm going to go ahead and take the paper backing off of these, just one less step that I have to do later. So I'm happy with this. Our tutu is going to go across here, so it's going to hide any kind of inconsistencies. The main point that you want to keep in mind is that the fabric is tucked into the boot because we're going to sew across here later. And if you're picky and you want them both to be the same, now's the time to do it before you fuse it on. So this looks good to me. I'm happy with the center line. So I'm going to go ahead and fuse this on. Next, we're going to take it to the sewing machine and sew this in place. And I'm going to give you some tips to make it a little bit easier. It's easier if you flip your shirt inside out and sew it inside out, if that makes sense. Hold on, I'll show you in just a second. So I'm going to flip my shirt inside out here. From here, I'm going to sew. So this front piece is touching my sewing machine now. Previously, when it was, I almost had to turn it inside out to get it on here. And there's nothing behind it. I don't have to worry about catching anything. So I'm just gonna start in one corner here, and I'm just sewing everything into place. I'm kind of taking my time and making sure that my fabric isn't slipping and that I'm not sewing anything else I'm not supposed to be. I am sewing all the way to the tip of the shoe just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I do not recommend washing these. Not that you can't wash things that are applique, but with the Tulle little tutu we're about to create, I've learned firsthand that they don't do so great in the washing machine. So I definitely would recommend hand washing this shirt. That's what it looks like so far. It looks so cute. All right, next we're gonna work on the bows. I've got this 3/8 of an inch ribbon, and I'm gonna cut 7 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna fold it into a bow. So I'm gonna make one loop over here and then come to the other side and put it behind to make the other loop. Here's when you kind of have to eyeball it to make sure things are looking the same. Once you're happy with how it looks, and I'm gonna trim the edges off in a second, you're gonna take your needle and thread, and this is just regular thread that matches, and I've double folded it over my needle. I'm gonna start from the back and bring it to the front right in the middle of this bow. Making sure that I get all of the strands here. This is usually where I poke myself in the finger. From here, you're still holding it. You're gonna wrap your thread around the top to the bottom of your bow several times, and this is what's gonna keep everything nice and tight. I'm still kind of maneuvering my bow around as I'm doing this to make sure it's not losing its shape. Once I'm happy with how it looks, I'm gonna end at the front here and run my needle straight through the middle, right into my other finger. And I'm gonna pull tight. So we have our first bow. Isn't that cute? From here, I like to cut my corners so they look nice and pretty. From here, I'm going to sew it right onto the foot. So I didn't cut my thread, it's still attached from when I created the bow, and I'm just gonna put it right where I want it. So I'm gonna stick it right through the shoe here. I'm using both of my hands here. I'm gonna hold the bow in place, and I'm gonna come back up just under where I want the bow to stay. And I'm gonna wrap my thread over those threads that I used to create it. So it's just gonna hide right in there. That's why I use thread that matches. I guess if you wanted to get fancy, you could use whatever color you want to, but it's just the way that I'm doing it. And I'm gonna do this a couple times. Basically, I'm just looping it over the middle so it doesn't go anywhere. I'll do this maybe 3 or, I don't know, 3, 4 times, whatever you think. From here, I'm gonna go to the back and I'm gonna secure this by running my needle under and creating kind of a knot. I'm just going to go back and forth a couple times and then create a knot when I'm finished. So there's side number one. Now we're going to create the second bow. The same thing on the other side. This is what we have so far, and you could leave it at this. If you don't want to go through the trouble of using tulle or buying something specific like this, leave it like this. This is perfectly cute just the way it is. But if you would like to create the tutu, the next step is to measure our Ric Rac. And if you're using a different size leggings, or if you've adjusted these at all, this is going to vary. But I want it to be just a little bit longer than both sides. So this is going to be a little over 5 inches long. If you have any fray check or even a lighter, now is the time for you to burn this edge off and this edge off to keep it from fraying long term. From here, we're going to take our black, purple, and orange tulle, and we're going to make 5-inch cuts out of these, and we're going to make several so we can make a pattern on our little tutu or skirt, whatever you want to call it. So here's one. So we're just going to cut 5 inches down of each of them. Usually I just cut one and then use that as the reference for all of them. But whatever pattern you want to establish here, cut that many of each. I kind of just start cutting, see what I feel like. Sometimes it's different for everyone. I'm gonna get smarter here. Use my rotary blade. Next, we're gonna figure out what kind of pattern we want to use. We're gonna take our tulle and turn it a little bit in the middle, and then fold it in half. So this right here is what we're going to stick under our tulle. And I like to use the top curves and match up my tulle on the back side. It'll probably be easier to see with a lighter colored tulle, but I'm gonna clip this in place and show you on the next one. And then match it up to the top of the Ric Rac, leaving a little bit of clearance. You don't want this showing on the top like this, so you kind of want it down a little bit lower. And then I'm going to clip this into place again. So we're going to have a big row of clips in just a second. This is where the pattern comes in handy if you want to do a certain way, shape, or form. And we're going to sew this together before we put it on the shirt. So this is what we have. And you can make this more full or less full depending on what you like. I'm gonna take this to my sewing machine and I'm gonna just follow the Ric Rac, and I'm gonna probably go twice over this. We're ready to sew our tulle onto our Ric Rac. I still have my black thread because you definitely don't want to see that. I'm using a matching thread to whatever color you have, and we're going to take our clips off and slowly work around our Ric Rac here. We're going to pin our skirt onto our shirt. So this just kind of involves eyeballing it. Once you're happy with where it is, just start on one side, stick your pin through, and then I like to put my hand underneath to make sure it's not going through both layers of the shirt. You just want it to go through the top layer, obviously. You don't want to sew your shirt closed. And then I'm going to do the other side. Instead of working my way down, I'm going to put one pin on each side and then work my way through the middle, just to make sure that it stays straight. Another great part where you can poke your finger. So I've fed the front of my shirt under my feed dogs and my presser foot. And from here, you want to make sure that the back of your shirt is out from underneath the top of your shirt, and that everything's nice and smooth. You don't want it bunched up and risk sewing two parts of the shirt together. Now I'm just going to kind of sew pretty much straight across. I'm going to do a little bit of a wave to follow the Ric Rac, but overall I'm not going to get too crazy here because I don't want to, I'm not trying to mess up at this point. Here is our finished shirt. These are pretty easily adaptable. You can use different threads, you know, scrap bust. You can make the legs bigger or smaller or whatever you think that you need to do. Don't forget to subscribe for more future videos. I definitely plan to make more of these applique shirts, especially as the holidays get closer. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks, y'all.